Some people move to the woods for peace. I moved there because I was done with people. After 2 decades in law enforcement and a divorce that left more scars than memories, I inherited my uncle's off-grid cabin near Sparrow Ridge, 3 miles outside a sleepy mountain community that was barely clinging to a post office and a diner. The cabin had no neighbors in sight, no cell signal, and no noise except birds and the occasional storm. But that changed when the homeowners association came in. You see, a few real estate developers sniffed out the area for rustic luxury potential, bought up some old logging land, and built 10 identical cabins that looked more like Aspen ski condos than forest homes. Then came the HOA. I didn't sign anything. I wasn't part of their jurisdiction. But that didn't stop them from trying to include me. And that's how I met her. Karen Delaney, HOA president, former suburban warrior, and self-appointed queen of the mountain. The first time I met Karen, she was walking up my driveway, holding a clipboard like it was a sword. "Excuse me," she said, eyes scanning my cabin like it was a crime scene. "Are you aware that your woodpile is a fire hazard under HOA Guidelines 3A and 7C? I blinked. "I'm not in the HOA. "Well, technically, your cabin borders the common trail path, and the guidelines allow for visual compliance radius," she said smugly, as if that meant anything. I chuckled. "You gonna find the squirrels, too?" That didn't sit well. From that day on, Karen made it her mission to encourage compliance. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes in a Ziploc bag tacked to my door. "Your siding color is not approved. Please use wildlife-safe garbage bins. Your wind chimes are causing disturbances during community meditation hour." I ignored her until she started stealing my power. One morning, I walked outside to feed the birds and noticed something strange. An orange extension cord ran from the side of my cabin from the old utility outlet near the crawl space all the way into the woods. I followed it like breadcrumbs, curiosity boiling into suspicion. The cord wound through brush over logs and across the trail until it disappeared behind Karen's back deck. A small inverter sat there humming, plugged directly into my outlet. It was running garden lights, a heater in her yoga dome, and even what looked like a second freezer unit. She'd been stealing my power. I unplugged it right then and there. No note, no warning, just a clean cut. An hour later, she showed up, furious. "You had no right to tamper with that. It was a shared resource. The community decided that outlet was unclaimed." I stared at her. "It's on my land." She smiled a tight, smug smile. "Then I suppose we'll need to take it up with the HOA board. Maybe it's time to bring your cabin into compliance officially." I knew what that meant. Karen had some influence, enough to stir trouble at the county level, and I wasn't about to play defense. So I got creative. See, my uncle had rigged the place with a bunch of quirky old systems. One of them was a powered waste pump, a backup for the septic tank, wired to the crawl space outlet Karen had been using. It hadn't been used in years, but it still functioned, and it was now on its own breaker, ready to go. So I did a little rewiring. I made sure the power flow could go one way only directly to the septic pump when someone plugged in. Then I waited. 2 days later, I saw the cord reappear. She didn't even ask. She just snuck back, plugged it in, and went about her day, probably assuming I had given up. What she didn't know was that every time she plugged in, she was activating the septic tank's stir and discharge system. At first, nothing happened, but over a few days, the sludge built pressure, and then it exploded. The call came in at 6:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I picked up the radio scanner I still kept from my old days and listened in. "Dispatch, we have a 10 to 70 environmental hazard at 113 Sparrow Trail. Resident reports raw sewage leaking from underneath a structure. It's, flooding the deck." I stood on my porch with a coffee mug and watched the chaos unfold. Karen stood, ankle deep in septic sludge, screaming at 2 volunteer firefighters who were trying not to gag. Her white yoga dome was ruined. The soil under her meditation garden had turned to muck. Worst of all, the county health inspector arrived an hour later and red-tagged the entire property. They couldn't prove how it happened, but they knew something had been triggered through the power line. Karen came storming back that evening, face redder than a July sun. You think this is funny? You could have poisoned me. You stole power, I replied calmly. Consider it septic karma. I'm going to sue you. I'll bring down everything you own. I stepped off the porch and handed her a folder. This is a cease and desist, already filed. Also includes an itemized invoice for the power you stole, plus criminal theft charges if you plug in again. And just for fun, I tapped the last page. A land survey showing your fence is 6 feet over my property line. I want it gone by Sunday. Her mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Just a long, high-pitched noise like a kettle screaming. She left. In the weeks that followed, Karen's reign crumbled. Word spread through the other homeowners. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd harassed, just the first to fight back. The board ousted her in a closed-door vote. Her influence faded. Eventually, she put her cabin up for sale, citing unlivable soil conditions and lack of community support. The best part? When her house went on the market, I bought it. Cash, not to live in, but to tear down. I turned the space into a public fire pit and picnic spot for anyone hiking the trail. I named it Karen's Crossing. It's now the most reviewed spot in our little park app. 5 stars, every comment a dig. Beautiful clearing, peaceful silence, and no HOA drama. Great place to meditate and reflect on bad life decisions. One evening, I sat by the fire with a thermos of cider, watching the sun set over Sparrow Ridge. For the first time in a long time, there was peace again. The cabin was quiet. The woods were calm. And the outlet? I sealed it with a steel plate and engraved a new warning sign just above it. Not a shared resource. Plug in, and you get what's coming. Some lessons, I guess, are best learned the hard way.